All right. Hello, everyone. Looks like we are officially live on IG. Hope you all are doing well. Let me give y'all a minute to get on this live and wait for our special guest who has just arrived. Let me let her on. Let's see how you do this. There we go. Hey, Joy,
What's
how are
up?
you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you so much for being on this today. Want to have a great conversation about hiring today. Hiring is like literally the most important part of your business, in my opinion. This
It
evening,
is not. So we'll talk about that. It is not.
listen, we can debate about that,
It's a big
but
piece of it, but it's not the most important part. So we'll talk about that.
listen, to me right now it is, and we can talk about that. Uh,
Noted.
hello, got some folks coming in. Do me a favor when you come on, please, if you can, just like share this out. Share it in like the DM feed, like however you can do it. You can tag maybe some other folks that need to come in and hear this conversation. Talking to Joy Pittman, she is the founder of HR for the Culture. Has an amazing HR firm. She's hired me. She's helped me tremendously with hiring and a lot of other countless people with that. And she is literally an HR expert. So all the entrepreneurs get in here, whether you service based, product based, info products, e-commerce, whatever. Make sure you get in here and tag other entrepreneurs because this is a very, very important conversation when it comes to growing and scaling your business. Whether you're a solopreneur, whether you have one team member, whether you got 10 team members, this is a very important conversation. So make sure you get here. So before we get started, just please introduce yourself. Who are you, your company, and how you got into this niche?
So hey y'all, my name is Joy Pittman. I'm the founder of HR for the Culture, the curator of the Boss Up Your Business community. Thank you. Curator of the Boss Up Your Business community, and HR for the Culture is the premier HR management and consulting firm supporting Black women-owned startups and small businesses. And so essentially, what we aim to do is help those individuals grow their businesses with our focus on team leadership and culture. So those are our three focus areas. And so hiring is a piece of what we do, right? And that falls under the team bucket, but we really help Black women develop their leadership really and focus on how to build their leadership capacity and lead effectively, and then also build amazing cultures in their businesses, because part of our mission is to also create viable alternatives for Black talent, right? So Black folks feel like sometimes you got to go to corporate, you got to code switch, you got to do all the things to really work in a thriving environment. And so what we want to do is help Black businesses reach that level and then employ Black folks, right? So that we can work in organizations where we're not just a diversity metric, right? Where we're actually part of the intentions of the organization. So that is what I do. Thank you so much for having me on here. And I'm ready to get to it.
Yes, that is great. So we already got the comments blowing up. Also, Joy has an amazing tribe, amazing community.
What's up?
Boss Up. Boss Up. It's a private Facebook group. So I know she'll tell you how to get access to that. But her tribe come thick, like for real, like the beehive out here. Like, don't mess with Joy in these HR streets. Because trust me, they will get you. A lot of other stuff has happened before, and the tribe got her back. And thank you all so much for being here. But they definitely in here supporting as well. So, I want to take it all the way back first. Like, how did you first get started in this? HR, I feel, is like a really specialized field.
Mm-hmm.
So like originally, like, how did you get started on this? What made you want to do this? Did you go to school for this? What made you like eventually want to leave your corporate background and actually do this for yourself and, become an entrepreneur and help other entrepreneurs. So let's kind of start from the beginning of what made you what got you into HR?
Okay, so I'm gonna tell y'all my business a little bit on this. I ain't gonna give y'all all the details, but I got in trouble, y'all. So I was out here being young and crazy,
For real?
and I got in trouble, right? Like legal trouble. Like I had to go turn myself in trouble. Just trying to keep up with the community I grew up in, trying to keep up with the look, right? Trying to keep up with outfits and all that other stuff, and just was making bad choices. And so I got in trouble. And during the process of me navigating that, I had to get a job. Like, it was things that I had to do. And so one of the places that I interviewed while I was going through my trouble, right? Like I had a court case, and I can talk about this in Boss Up. I'll probably share more about it because it's the thing I haven't talked about a lot. I actually had to find a job. And so I started looking for work. And one of the organizations I went to was Starrett City. For those out in New York, it was Starrett City, Grenadier Realty. And at the time, the director of HR's name was Vernon Douglas. I speak to him to this day. And I came in and I just told him what was going on. During that time, before you didn't have to check the box, you didn't have to do any of that stuff. If you had stuff pending, you had to do all that stuff and let people know in advance, right? It wasn't they had to wait until they made you an offer to ask you, right? At that point, you had to disclose. And the department was predominantly Black folks. It wasn't a Black-owned company, but HR was predominantly Black. And I came in, I told a story, and they basically were like, all right, well, you have the qualifications. We're going to give you a chance at it. And that was my first job in HR. He also allowed me, because I was trying to finish school. I was going to school at 7 a.m. I had a class at 7 a.m. in at Kingsborough College. If you're familiar with New York, you know that's like exit 7 on the Belt Parkway. I then was coming back to work in Starrett City. I would work from 9 to 5, and then I would get off work and go back to school at night. And then I would go home. And I lived in Queens, and I didn't have a car. So I had to do a lot to try to like catch up and to make up for things. But I just remembered thinking like this person was just in a space and in a seat to make a different decision, right? And to give me an opportunity. And I never forgot that. Like that was always embedded in me. Further on down my journey, finished school, I had the opportunity to get promoted at that job, and I managed benefits for a while. So I managed benefits for about 6 years. And during that time, there were a lot of individuals had cancer. For some reason, like I was doing a lot of cancer policies, people were sick. And so navigating or helping them navigate the space between, like you work for this company for all these years, now you're sick and the company has to support you. So I was the person supporting them, right, while they were sick. And it resonated with me that this is also an amazing opportunity for HR folks. I'm not always the fuzziest person. I tend to be in the weeds of like data and being really analytical. But that was a way that like researching their claims, making sure that stuff was happening on time, making sure that like they didn't miss payments from disability and all that other stuff like that became really important. And then in 2007, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And so all the work I had been doing for other people, he worked for an agency and nobody was doing that for him. So again, that's another moment where it resonated, like the importance of having people, the right people. And HR, I think, became a big deal to me, which is why like I'm passionate about it. Because I really understand that like while we're asking people to work and to help us build our businesses and help us build our brands and serve customers and serve clients and produce products and widgets and Watsits, they then at some point need to be customers of the company at some point, right? And to get back what they need, what we put out. And so my dad had a really bad experience. He was a veteran. He was a civil servant for 30 years, right? Like he did all the things and had a really, really bad experience. And so my dad passed in 2009. Vernon at that time was my boss. He came to my graduations, but it never left me that a Black person in the right seat gave me an opportunity, right? And so I went on to be the HR manager and director of some non-for-profit organizations in Harlem. I ran my own HR department. I staffed it. And then I pivoted out into healthcare. So I worked in social services. I worked in healthcare. I worked in real estate management. And my last job, I worked in corporate finance with like an $18 billion organization. I was a business partner, and I was one of the onlys. And so this whole thing full circle and coming into remembering that, like, I don't know that I would have gotten the opportunity that I got to start and land where I did if somebody didn't want to give me a chance. And I don't know if I would have been given that same chance if that person did not look like me. And so fast forward, that's my HR start, right? Like I tried to give y'all a quick version because we only here for an hour. The story itself could be more than an hour, but that was a quick start. Like I screwed up. I needed an opportunity and somebody in the right seat gave me one. I think my life trajectory was totally different because that person took the opportunity to do that. And I do have to feel like there was some, because that person was just in the right seat and they were able to see me through eyes of compassion, like I could be their daughter or whatever. They opened that up. And in a lot of spaces, other folks can have compassion for folks that look like them, right? Because they can see that likeness. And when we're not in the right seats and in the right places, there's really nobody looking out for us that way. So that's why I love my field. It's really why I love what I do. And it really is why even coming out of corporate, I teeter-totted with the idea a little bit of not doing HR, but it's just necessary. Like, I think what we do is necessary, and it's why when Ryan is like, hiring is the most important thing she does, I think it's not because it's the most impactful thing to the entrepreneur, but to the people that they hire, the people they employ. It's not just that you gave me a job, it's the other stuff, right? And so hopefully we get to talk about some of the other stuff as well, but also, you know, the hiring was a big part of my story. Like, somebody hired me, and then, so it is a big part of it, but it's not the only thing. It's just the beginning. So I'm gonna pause there because you know I can talk. So I'm gonna pause so you can get a question.
Oh, that's powerful. If y'all getting a lot of value out of this, please drop something. Drop an emoji, drop a fire emoji, drop something down in the comments. We will go to Q&A a little bit later. So if you have any direct HR questions, leadership questions, hiring questions, just strategic, you know, questions in general around structure, team, all that type of stuff, we will go to Q&A. You can put in the Q&A box or just put it as a comment. So you shared a lot in this, a lot of great information. Let's see, we got some other folks on here. I saw Dante in here, so shout out to Dante that joined. If you haven't already, just tag someone else that needs to be here. So let's get into, you know, it a little bit of what I really want to talk about, which is actually, you know, the importance of, I mean, not just hiring, like, and I will say Joy has helped me tremendously on actually hire people and get bodies into my company, but not just that, the actual strategic part of it. So it's not just like me coming to you, oh, well, I need a VA, or I need a PM, or I need a EA, or whatever. You don't know what that is. I'm sorry, virtual assistant, executive assistant, project manager, that type of stuff.
Oh, now you got lingo happening, right? Now you hiring, you fancy now, so now you PM and PA.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever you need, she can help you with. But it was more so like, okay, well, let me look at your entire structure of your company and see, like, you know, where certain roles should be. And if it's like maybe getting rid of some roles, maybe adding on some roles, maybe turning this role into something else or something like that. So, you know, we'll talk about the strategic part of it and leadership part of it as well. But I want to ask you, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see entrepreneurs make? I know one of the biggest thing is I don't have enough money to hire someone. You know what I'm saying? That's how I used to think. That is how a lot of entrepreneurs think, especially when you're a solopreneur, you're doing everything yourself and you know you need to hire someone, but it's like, I can't afford to hire someone. You know, when I get somebody, like, what am I going to have them do? And, you know, that type of stuff. So what are like some of the biggest mistakes you see folks make, and like, how do they navigate that?
So I think I don't know if it's a mistake, right? I think it's just the vantage point part is that we assume hiring looks one way. Mm. So if I can't do it that way, then that means I can't do it, right? And so one of the things that we try to do is literally try to understand. We try to understand.
Go in.
Where are you?
They waiting for you to go in.
Where are you, right? So it's like, where are you in this? Where are you in the spectrum, right? So I think it's like, you know, we think W-2 independent contractor. Those are the two seats that we sit in. And we don't really understand necessarily what W-2 is. We know it's like taxes and whatever. And then like independent contractor is like, I just pay this person hourly. Like, those are the two constructs. So I think that the biggest deal is at first we act like it's a binary. It's these two options, that's all. And we don't approach HR. I will say, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, because of how we've faced HR in the workspace, or never embraced it or approached it at all, I think what ends up happening is that we then wait until we feel like we need HR, as opposed to seeing this is the department that's supposed to be helping me with my people strategy. So good HR folks should be able to look at where you are in your business, look at your budget, look at your parameter, look at your industry, and recommend what your next step should be, right? So when I say, when people are like, hey, they wait until, hey, I need to hire somebody, most of those people have missed a lot of opportunity in the front to not be overwhelmed, to not be drowning, to not be stressed, to not be whatever, because they decided where they were going to position us. And so what I will say is, it really is thinking about, the first thing I'm going to say for most entrepreneurs is we have to be willing to invest at the level that our knowledge is not applicable, or it's not efficient, or it's not effective, right? So I do HR. That means I don't do marketing. That means I don't do graphic design. That means I don't do makeup. That means I don't do hair and nail. I don't do all those other things. So if I'm going to decide that I know what's best in the areas that I don't function in, what I'm doing is I'm stunting my whole business at my capacity. So at minimum, you may not have enough money to hire 99 people? Can you afford a consult? Can you afford to take a class? Can you afford to join a training or a coaching session or whatever it is to find out what you don't know? Because a lot of times we're operating in our own assumptions. And the thing of it is, especially for service-based businesses, we are frustrated when people do it to us, but we do it to other services, right? So we're like, just book the call. Let me talk to you. Let me at least tell you what we can do. So the first thing is, don't believe that the only way you can get the support that you need to grow and scale your business, or the only way you can hire or trade value for value or money for time or whatever is this W-2 versus like independent contractor like thing. It's other stuff, right? And so one of the things that we help people talk through is like, do you need to be bartering services? Like, are you at a place right now where you do something that they can't afford and they do something you can't afford? Y'all can't afford each other, but y'all need each other. So how do y'all work through those agreements? And the same constructs that go into hiring go into that agreement. What are your work scopes? What are you agreeing to do? What are they agreeing to do? What's the value trade-off, right? It's the same that you do when you're trying to write a job description to hire somebody. It's the same thing you do when you're trying to get an independent contractor. So it's really look for the strategy people. I know sometimes we go straight to transactions. Like, I think I know what I want. I'm just going to go with somebody that's going to do what I want. But you need to be talking to people that can help you curate what's custom for you so that you're not waiting past the point that you need to be waiting at. So that to me is the number one mistake. The number two mistake is waiting until you're drowning to look for help. Because drowning is expensive.
Like that's you. And I'm like,
I'm looking at I'm just looking at the screen. It just feels. But waiting until you're drowning to look for help, because drowning is expensive, right? Like, when you're drowning, that means you're turning away work already, right? That means that that's at the point where you're probably not delivering to your capacity for your clients. You're possibly already getting bad reviews. Somebody done already walked away unhappy. So drowning is expensive. And I gave this analogy. We did a challenge a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I can't teach you how to swim when you're drowning. At the point that you're drowning, you need a lifeguard. But what happens is, right, that at the point that we are drowning, now we decide to hire entry-level talent. An entry-level person can't help you when you're drowning. So now you actually, by waiting and feeling like you couldn't afford it, you just made your problem bigger, right? And you just made it more expensive. So at the point that you're calling me and you like, I need somebody in 2 weeks, my rate don't look the same, sis. I'm just going to tell you that's what it is. That 2-week turnaround rate look real different than the, how do I build this from the beginning and create the right culture and attract the right people? Or I've tried to hire everybody on my own and I messed it up a lot. And now I got these bad Glassdoor reviews and I got this bad experience and all these trust issues. And now you want somebody to come in and help you on the back end. But now they're coming in to your baggage. It's like relationships, right? Like, don't look for me after you don't let everybody else drag you, right? Like, and I think those are the things that we do that we don't do that are helpful. And we also listen to other folks too much that are also not the experts, telling you about their bad or good experiences and assume that everything is universal. So I cringe when I go in these Facebook groups and somebody's like, how did you hire your contractor? And somebody who hired one person one time before puts this whole post up about this SOPs, and I'm dying inside, right? Because this stuff is also not universal. Your states are different. Your cities are different. Your businesses are different. Your requirements are different. So it's so many levels to it. So if I boil it down, what the biggest mistake is, I think we wait too long and we don't go to the experts. We take the cheap way, and sometimes the cheap way costs you more money, period.
That's a lot. And I've definitely done that before, wait until I'm drowning because, I get a lot of clients, a lot of folks coming, people hitting me up. I rarely ever turn away work, so I'm always like trying to keep up with the demand and have enough people, especially as a service-based business, to have enough people, enough hands to actually fulfill the service, because I'm big on customer service, fulfillment, delivery, a great customer experience. I'm big on that, but at the end of the day, I can't do everything myself. So I think that's extremely important. And I've heard what you said before is like, people will say, well, I can't afford to hire someone, but you can afford to get your hair done. You can afford cable. You can afford whatever else. You know what I mean? So once you really look at your budget,
you can afford to turn away money.
Right.
You can afford to give refunds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we'll say what we can't afford. I think the other part, and I'm going to touch this and I'm going to stop. The other thing is, like, we also have to be clear about what entrepreneurship costs. Right? Like, entrepreneurship is not this thing like my job made me mad. You know what? I'm gonna just do it on my own. Entrepreneurship is not revenge sex. Like, it's not the thing that you do to spite somebody. It's not. It's not how you get back at the man. You're literally forging out and saying, entrepreneurs are individuals who pursue business taking on a higher than normal risk. If you look up the word entrepreneur, it's taking on a higher than normal risk. So you're taking on this higher than normal risk. You're not doing that to spite somebody. You're not doing that to give yourself the CEO title that nobody else would give you. You're doing that because you ideally believe that you have a product or service or an idea, right, that can benefit an industry, and you are intent to grow it and make it thrive. So how do you do that and then be like, but I'm also not willing to invest in it? I want somebody to pay me, but I'm not willing to pay me. I want somebody to give me $1,500, but I've never spent $1,500 on anything as it relates to growing and scaling my business. So a lot of us can't ask for our pricing correctly. A lot of us don't have the support systems we need because we don't pay nobody. And I'm going to tell you, I got real clear about asking for my money when I started paying other people 4 and 5 figures for the stuff that I needed in my business. Because it changes, right? When I started employing people, it changed how I navigate client work, right? How I navigate my hustle on times where I want to go to bed. For those of y'all that was in my challenge, Friday I was good. Like, I had nothing left to give the world. But I also had payroll to run, right? So then so I think that sometimes we're letting ourselves off the hook because some of us will only work at the level that we are pushed. And when you don't have anybody accountable that you have to be accountable to, anybody that you're pushing for, sometimes you'll take the L, right? You in that month short of your goal because it's like, oh, I'll just make it up next month. Not when you have to pay other people's bills, right? So that's one area that I think that we have to be more intentional about. And I think the other thing is, we also have to think about, again, entrepreneurship in its proper context. It is an investment. It is not replacing your job. If you want to be self-employed, do that. Entrepreneurship is not self-employment. It's saying, I'm going to build something. And who builds something? Like, if I said I was going to build a house with 2 bricks, I ain't never built nothing before. I've never built a house before. I'm not going to hire an architect. I'm not going to hire anybody to lay out my plan. You would think I was crazy. But we walk into building businesses with no plan, with no support systems, with no specialists, with no strategy, with no clarity, with no goals, right? And we're like, but I'm out here entrepreneuring. That's not what this is. So the thing is, see it as an investment, right? Think about it from the beginning. So if that changes your strategy on how you leave your job. If I had to do it over, I would have worked another year because I would have saved my money differently, not just to pay my bills when I started this, but to pay for what I needed, right? Or I would have spent less on some things, or that first 30 days of being free from my job, I would not have gone on that vacation. Like, I would have done something different because I would have seen it as an investment. I think that's the biggest issue, that we see it as a pivot, as an easy. We're looking at people, other people's lives. We looking at that nonsense they sell us on social media about sitting on the beach. I work with 7-figure clients. None of them are sitting on beaches with their laptops. None of them. And they're successful. It's trash. Right? But that's what we're thinking about. And so I said it the other day, like, people sell you the mountain, they don't tell you about the climb. So you chasing other people's mountains and you don't know what it took them to get there or how fraudulent that mountain is, right? And we're not clear about what we're getting into. So I think if we walk into this clearer, we'll think about what it is to scale and partner. 97% of Black women-owned businesses are solopreneurships. And generally, if we don't hire in the first 3 years, we won't hire.
Wait, say it again.
So when you're saying I'm a wait.
97, say it again.
97%, 97.6% as of the count that they did in 2019. 97.6% of Black women-owned businesses are solopreneurships. That means that on top of being wives, girlfriends, mamas, baby mamas, this, that, and the other, now we're cookers, cleaners, etc. We're also running businesses on fumes and no bandwidth, and we are opting to do it on our own. And stats also say if you don't hire in the first 3 years, you probably won't. So that whole thing around, I'm gonna wait to hire in year 5 according to my plan, you probably won't, because you probably will never get enough traction to have a year 5 that will allow you to bring in who you need. Right? And so all that stuff, it's important to consider and think about. I'm not leaving the men out, right? Like, I'm talking to you, but like, you're a parent, you're somebody's child, like, you got a lot of things going on too. Waiting until you're losing money to think that that's the best time to invest in bringing in somebody is not it. So start with the first contract. We got a $5K a month contract. That first contract, my rent was $19.50. My car was paid for. I knew what it was that I needed to eat, and I didn't need no more clothes, bags, or shoes. We was good on that. So I pulled out the $2,300 I needed. The $27 went back into the business. I immediately contracted with another HR person. What we do too often is we get that first $5K contract, and then we think we owe a gift. Let me go buy me a purse because I did that. You ain't did nothing. $5K a month is $60K for the year. That's less than half of what I was making when I left corporate. Why would I celebrate that? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's the mindset part, but we also, like, we waiting too long, and I don't know what we waiting on, but it don't get easier when you get more clients. It's the easiest it's ever going to be at one client, at 2 clients. It don't get easier at 20.
Who you telling? Like,
and by 20, you don't even have time to vet people effectively. Now you just giving out jobs because you just want to be out of the pressure. You know what I mean? So it's like, we have to stop being reactionary. I'm an emotional person, so I'm not gonna tell people don't be emotional, but you got 48 hours on them feeling. Like, you can't live there. Then you got to figure out what is then the strategy that I'm going to use to move past this point.
Mm-hmm. This is great information. Shout out to Adrian here, LinkedIn Pros. Shout out to everybody else that has joined and dropping comments. Seems like people getting a lot of value out of this. I'm definitely learning a lot as well. Joy has definitely helped me tremendously. I just want to put it in perspective a little bit. Can you explain a little bit, on what type of roles that you've hired, what type of companies you work with, what type of, industries and niches you work with? Like I said, Joy has helped me a lot. Like, we've had literally so many shifts in my business just within the last week. Like, literally, I've had to let people go. I've brought on 3 people, new people within the last week. 3 or 4 people or something like that. So it's been a lot of moving parts. And me personally, HR and hiring is not my strength. Joy knows all the time. If I have HR issues and stuff, I'm hitting her up. It's not my strength. I can sell, I can market, we can build funnels, I can get clients, I can do content. I can do a lot of stuff. But as far as hiring, leadership, team building, it's something that I do and I pride myself on that I'm doing it, but it's just by nature, not my strength, so I definitely need help with that. But can you just put it in perspective so people know, what type of roles have you hired, what type of companies you work with, what type of industries and niches you work with? Some people might be like, well, I have a product-based business. This may not apply to me. I have a service-based, or I sell digital products.
So we have done
brick and mortar.
We've done hair brands. We've done candles. We've done subscription boxes. We've done SaaS programs. We've done marketing. We've done product and service based. Yep. We started out heavily actually in e-commerce, and all of our recommendations we're doing there, and then we moved over. So we tax accounting firm. We've done I'm not gonna say the gambit, right? But we've touched a couple of things. What I will say is that product and service based are different, but we service both of them, right? So the approaches are different, the strategies are different. E-commerce businesses, y'all know, August, September, October, November, y'all are just doing what y'all need to do. Service based has different ebbs and flows. It's a different feel. The roles that we hire for service-based businesses generally are less duplicative. So it's operations managers, copywriters, program managers, project managers, that stuff. For e-commerce, it's generally your warehouse folks, your production folks. Some of the other stuff is what I will say is the companies that we're working with, some of them are doing a blend of, or most of them are doing a blend of W-2 and 1099, right? So they may have contracted out their finance departments, they may have contracted out their marketing, but they have their internal teams around maybe their web design or their project management or program management or administrative roles, customer service roles, etc. We've helped in the past. We're not doing as much of that anymore. We have a partner that we work with on that now, hiring in the VA space. So we've done that. Now what we really do is more strategy and informing people about how they can use VAs and hire VAs to be supported, but we don't necessarily recruit in that space as much. So what we're focusing on now and moving forward is really helping people hire HR talent, right? For those that are saying, hey, we're ready for in-house folks, or I need somebody in the HR space to help me build my brand. We're also focusing on hiring executive level roles. So directors of operations, director of operations has been the biggest one that everybody's looking for because everybody's CEO and they need an ops person, project managers. We've done some marketing staff, branding, etc. I think the bigger thing that we've done though, outside of hiring per se, is getting people to see hiring differently. Because a lot of times by the time people come to us, they focus on it needs to look like this. And what we're helping them do is really see, like, here's what your mix really could look like. This is what you really could maximize on. Hey, you thought you were going to get one person. We can probably get you two at this if you do it this way. Does this person need to be part-time? Do they need to be full-time? Like, doing that stuff and helping judge it. And for the clients that really trust us and let us do our good work, like, we actually try to walk through their journey. Like, what are you doing at every step so that we can understand what your staffing plan should look like and recommend it, right? So that part, now we're not remapping it for you. We're not building it for you, but what are you doing at every step? And who are you? Because the other part of hiring at this level is your business. Most people here is business is not big enough for you to delegate managing people to somebody else, right? So what are your strengths in management? What are your weaknesses in management? How do we navigate that, right? How do you interview based on your strengths? So a lot of the women we support are like, I go with a 5. Well, that's cute, but you can't hire somebody on a vibe, right? So like, how do we then, I'm not judging you for that, right? The vibe is important. That's how you think about how your company's going to blend and how it works together. But you also need to figure out those technical skills. So keep holding on to your vibe, but let's build out then a process that allows you to get some objective information in so that by the time you get to the vibe, you've already been able to look at that person on paper and make sure they have what they need. So I think the biggest thing that we do, if I had to say like what I'm the most proud of that we do, is we let people be themselves in their businesses and then help them build a strategy that makes sense for them and not the cookie cutter, like you need 2 of these and 1 of those and we just giving everybody 2s and 1s. It's essentially, what do you need at this level of your business, this level of your management capacity, this level of bandwidth. Are you comfortable training and developing people? If not, let's talk about what you need in a real way, because the goal of this really is to not make other people HR managers. It's really to get y'all free enough to go sit in your zone of genius, right? And so if we bring in a bunch of people and now you're spending all your time trying to manage and performance manage these people, now instead of taking something off your plate, I've just added another requirement to it, right? And that still ain't your jam. So I still don't have you in your QBR or your secret sauce seed or whatever that is, right? You're still doing other things other than the thing that really brings the most value in your organization for you to be doing, right? So that's really what the goal is. And so I'm not judging other HR folks. They can do what they do. But what I haven't seen is a lot of HR folks starting with the leader in mind. I feel like we start with the role in mind. That's not our approach. Like, who are you as the leader and how do we help you build the team that makes sense for your business?
I love that. We're going to go to Q&A in a minute, y'all. If y'all got questions, get them ready. You definitely have her right now for another few minutes to answer any, hiring questions, HR questions, strategic leadership questions, other things that you may be struggling with, from our perspective in your business, not necessarily just hiring. I like how you said that you cover, everything like that, because most HR entrepreneurs or whatever, or HR staffing agencies are just looking at, like you said, like the role. Like, okay, you need someone, let me get someone. Who do you need? What role is it? How much can you pay? Let's go out and find someone. But like you said, not looking at the actual leader, the leadership qualities, the business structure, what you got going on, and really getting someone that fits with that. Another question I know you probably get a lot, and I'm always thinking about a lot is, and you talked about it a little bit already, but W-2 versus contractor. I'm going to go there because it's something I always think about. I can personally say I don't have any W-2 employees yet. I definitely want to get them soon, get some implemented. I have, tons of contractors. I've hired a good number of folks. I have five, 6 people working for me right now. But what would you say is, if I have these contractors and stuff like that, like I said, I got contractors, when is it time to transition to a W-2, if ever? I know there are multi-million-dollar companies that have all contractors and stuff like that. So what are the pros and cons? Why should you get one over the other? When are you ready to do that? And how would you answer that? Because I know you probably get that question a lot.
It depends. So I'll talk about it though, right? So one, I think every company should start off thinking about what do they want, right? So if you're committed to saying part of my growth strategy, part of my, let me back up. I believe every company should have, it's called CSR in corporate, but it's corporate social responsibility, right? You should have some clarity around, other than making money and servicing clients, what is the thing that I want to do, right, with this, right? And so if that breakdown includes that I want to create jobs for people, or I want to, like, whatever that looks like, you should start with that in mind, because I don't feel like there is a right or wrong way of whether or not you should have an employee versus W-2. Now, here's what I will say, and I think these are myths, and some people I respect highly have said some of this stuff, and I don't agree. So one, the belief that employees are more committed to your business than contractors, trash. That's like, people say that.
Okay,
and
why?
I think they say it so much that people believe it, but it's like, oh, like, you can't really have somebody committed unless they are your employee, as if employees don't resign, as if they don't walk off the job, as if they don't sit at the desk and not work for the full 8 hours, as if they don't, like, we say that, and somebody made that law, and I don't believe it. So that's a myth that I would think a committed person is going to be committed, whether they are a contractor or a W-2 person. They are committed. If they're committed, they're going to be committed. If they're not, they're not, right? So that's number one. Number two, the other thing that I think is that people love to make people W-2s without all the other stuff. So thank you for taking these taxes out my check, but also not giving me benefits, performance management. Like, if we're going to be employers, then to me, it makes sense to be competitive, right? So if I'm telling a person, I need you, that you're supposed to work for me from 9 to 5 only, right? And I'm going to make you sign a handbook and all these other things, but I also can't give you medical. I can't give you dental. I can't really give you effective time off. I can't, like, what are we really offering people, right, as a real barter for their time? And some of us are creating the very thing that we left. Like, you ran away from employers like you when you were an employee. Don't build that, right? So that's another thing. Like, are you ready to be somebody's whole employer? Okay, like, is that a thing? The other part is, I think that we treat the employee, the W-2 versus 1099 conversation, like you better in your business if you got W-2s. Like, it's a milestone. And so, like, when you're more legit if you got W-2s versus 1099s. And I know million-dollar organizations, to Ryan's point, right, who work predominantly in the contractor space, right? So what I will say is, the test on paper for 1099 versus W-2 is the person an independent contractor, meaning they come with their own skills, their own tools. You're not giving them SOPs. If I hear y'all tell me one more time y'all writing SOPs for contractors, I'm going to gag. You cannot give a contractor an SOP, because that means that they're not independent. Independent contractors come with their own skills, their own knowledge, their own tools, their own capabilities, and you're bringing them in to do a service in your business. Generally, your 1099s are not doing your main thing. So if you mop floors, if you have a floor mopping company and all y'all do is mop floors all day, it's more than likely that the people mopping the floors in your company should be W-2 employees. If you're providing them the mops, if you're providing them the buckets, if you're giving them the water, the solution, you telling them where to go, you teaching them how to mop the magical mop way, like all that stuff, those folks are employees, because they are not bringing in work that is completely independent from you, right? So that is the main thing. Independent contractors are just that, they're independent, okay? Employees are generally individuals where you have to provide them with resources, tools, skills, knowledge, training. And I want you to think about the idea that generally you should not be bringing on, in my opinion, the small business space, small business are less than 25 million. Okay, like that's small business, less than a certain amount of employees. So we think like the world is operating in billions and trillions. So 25 million is a lot to us, but it ain't, right? If you're making less than that, or if you're considered a smaller business, bringing in employees for things that are not your main thing, to me, is a liability, because you don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to keep them specialized in their skill. So if you're running a marketing agency and you're constantly doing marketing projects, the repetitive nature of what you're doing is going to keep your team abreast of what's changing, what's going on in the landscape, like all that stuff. But when you bring in an in-house accountant and that person is only doing your accounting, every day that they are not in the regular world looking at all the things and all the constructs, they're specializing only in what you do. And at some point, that knowledge becomes antiquated, right? HR folks are the same way. I work with HR people, and they've worked in one organization. So they've never touched union. They've never touched different models, right? And so even what we do just by working with e-commerce, service-based, SaaS providers, marketing, coaching programs, whatever, our knowledge of industry, right? I will say even since leaving corporate, knowledge of industry has changed because now I got to understand production and fulfillment on the e-commerce side. I got to understand enough about digital marketing to hire that person. I got to understand coaching environment. I got to understand ebbs and flows industries. So it keeps you specialized because you're touching so many things. So when you're bringing in people into your company, one, that you don't have the knowledge and expertise to manage, because most people don't know enough HR to manage their HR manager, right? Or their accountant or whatever. And you're bringing in people that they're not touching a spectrum of things. Those people actually antiquate in your organization. So you lose. They probably were better when they came in than they will be in 2 years because all they've looked at is your system. They stop being able to innovate, right? They don't have any new ideas unless they're doing a lot of professional development, which most of us can't afford to send them to do. And we want them at work every day, right? So that's what they know, and that's what they do. So I will also recommend for your main thing, if you're like, hey, I need people here 9 to 5. I need them to do it my way. I need all those things. Yes, it makes sense for W-2. For the other stuff, until you're big enough to also specialize in this and also specialize in that internally, you really should wait to bring those things in-house. Because you're probably not getting the best quality of stuff. And I'll tell y'all, and this is like me not being shady, I was making 160, 175, right, in corporate. No one of my clients pays me that. So when people are like, oh yeah, I want her for HR, but I only got $1,500 a month, you got to realize that you're not going to get an HR employee that does what I do, and this is no shade, right? But that does what I do or that has my experience for less than a 6-figure number, plus benefits, bonus, comp. That's what that looks like. So you're better off a solid accountant, a CPA. You're not getting that for $50,000, right? So when you start thinking about, can you afford the experts in those arenas to come work for you? If the answer is no, contract it, right? And get what you need. Don't take mediocrity just because you want to say you're a W-2 employer. Like you don't get an award for that. You don't, right? There's no W-2 award. So you want to think about that stuff, and you want to bring in the people who are going to help you do your main thing, because everything else is an expense. I'm an expense other than the fact that I bring in people to help you do your main thing and keep them there. Your finance person is an expense other than the fact that they're helping you maximize on tax strategy. Like, they're an expense. So don't bring in a bunch of expenses at the full level when you really need to be bringing in your rainmakers, your money makers. Who are the people that are producing stuff that's going to bring money into your company, and then pay other people with that money, right? So that's the main thing. The other thing is, as Black folks, we have to stop carrying shame around stuff that every other industry does to make their money. I have worked in nonprofit organizations that were $1 million nonprofits, right? I worked for Bloomberg. I worked for Moody's. I worked for bigger organizations too. They all outsource something, right? The last company I was at outsourced all of their transactional HR team to India, right? And so, like, they're outsourcing and they have profit margins. They're paying out, right? They're paying out dividends. They're giving $1 million and $2 and $3 million bonuses to their CEOs, and they're outsourcing. And you are struggling to pay for your memberships and your applications, and you like, can I keep ClickFunnels one more month? Like, this is where we're struggling, and we're like, but we don't want to outsource because the person gonna have an accent, and I don't know if they're gonna look like me yet. And we got all these hangups, and other people are 10x in their businesses because they're not stuck on that stuff. So you want a VA that look like you? Go get one from the Caribbean. Go get one from Africa. They exist. The Philippines and India are not the end of VAs. Go find them, but don't make excuses, right? You think people won't buy from you if the person on the other phone got an accent? You're watching me right now on an iPhone or on a Galaxy or a Samsung, and I guarantee you right now, if you hit up Apple for support tonight, you're not talking to nobody that sound like they in Georgia. You're not, but it doesn't stop you from buying. We buy bags. We buy Nikes. Everybody got a pair of Nikes. Nikes are not made in the U.S. Nobody said I'm not wearing. I'm not saying nobody, but most people are not buying Nikes because nobody in a U.S. sweatshop made them, right? Like we say all this stuff, but it's like it's just excuses, really. And the clients that cannot work with you on your journey are not your clients. I have overseas VAs. I have W-2, right, employees. I have Filipino VAs. I have Black VAs. I have a W-2 employee that's Black. I'm Black. I'm W-2. it's the spectrum. I think that if we're serving people, the people who really want to work with us are not going to use that as a reason not to pay us. And so we can't also let people who wasn't going to pay you anyway give you an excuse why they didn't pay you, and you think that that's the reason that you can't build your business. They're paying other people who have the same thing going on, and they're not even thinking about it because they want to pay them. So you have to be thinking about, when I think of W-2 and 1099, it really is what makes sense for your business, right? If you're paying enough, or you have enough for the tax write-offs and all that other stuff, do. If you just paying and you don't have anybody help you maximize it, it may not be a good idea. And then it is the legalities of it. So now we talked about like the other stuff. The legalities of it is a lot of people are hiring independent contractors that are not. Right? If you're training them, they're not independent. If they got to log into all your systems to do the work, not independent, right? Especially in the U.S. Overseas VAs is different, but U.S.-based VAs, that U.S.-based person that you're calling a VA, that you have given an SOP, that you've also given access to all of your systems, that you had to log into your Asana, your Trello, your Teamworks, your Basecamp, that you had to do all that you had to give an email address to, that you had to teach how to do everything. That person is not a VA. They really are an employee. And the bad part about that is, I think somebody posted in the group we were in, the person said she realized that for companies going back like 5 years, she was an independent contractor, but should have been an employee. And she went and went to the Department of Labor and got back money. There's a 7-year look back. So when you just out here taking this random advice, bringing people into your business, making them VAs, if they realize like, oh shoot, I was really an employee and I could have been getting employee stuff, the Department of Labor is going to look back 7 years in some cases, sometimes 10, and you're liable for all of the money that you should have paid that person, whether it was overtime, whatever it was, you can be liable for it. Right? And then tell me you can't afford to pay the IRS. You can not afford it. You know what I mean? So it's like all this stuff that we got to think about. And I think the baseline of it is, for most people, is just pay for the consult. Like, if you can't afford the service, pay for the information. Right? To do it yourself. Or do the strategy call. Or ask a person like, hey, I know you do this and I can't afford you. Do you have a way that I can talk to you for an hour or two and lay out my stuff? Do you offer that service? Most of us don't mind helping. We just don't want help for y'all for free, because people don't appreciate free. Right? And we also don't want to give you strategy. And I've been dealing with that, giving people strategies and then they go pay somebody cheaper to do it. So no, you're going to pay me for my brain, right? Like I'm paying student loans still. Or all this education, I'm still paying loans on it. So it's like, that's the part, but you got to invest somewhere. You cannot build $1 million business on free 99 stuff. It just doesn't work.
That is heavy. When I told y'all I was bringing a heavy hitter in here, a true HR expert that really knows what she's talking about, I was not lying. So in my much, much cheaper, like she said, to remove all the headache. You know, you don't got to put the monkey hands over your eyes.
Don't cover your eyes, wipe with seal. We good. We good.
Like, seriously, that even if you can't afford the service, you know, because the service is not, you know, it's not going to be cheap, because she's definitely worth every penny that you're going to pay her. At least, at minimum, book the consult. She has an amazing community, a Facebook group that you can be a part of, Boss Up. On Facebook, private Facebook group. She just did a free challenge talking about a lot of this stuff. She's doing another challenge coming up in September. So make sure you register for that when the doors get back open. So Adrian says, tells her, don't they? Listen, she dropping bombs on y'all, nuggets on y'all. Make sure y'all please taking notes and you capturing everything that she's dropping. So we're going to go to Q&A. If anybody has any questions, drop them down. You can hit the Q&A box as well. Any question that you have on anything she covered, your personal situation with your business, you're thinking about hiring, you know, you need help from the leadership aspect, please drop that down. Adrienne, LinkedIn Pro, shout out to her, said, how can we work with you? I need to hire a new employee.
Yeah, so head over to hrfortheculture.com. On the first page, it'll say get to work, something like that. Just click on that and book a discovery call. Discovery calls are free, but I will tell you they're 20 minutes. We don't do strategy. We find out what your problem is. We tell you if we can help you. And from that, if we can help you, we don't just bill you. We send you to a strategy call. The strategy call is 1 hour. It is a paid strategy call. And in that way, I'm free to pour out. I'm free to give you any information you need, answer all your questions. And if you decide to work with us on the solution, we give you credit for that strategy call against the service. If you don't want to work with us, we still give you the strategy. So we write it up, we give it to you as a plan. But for me, it was hard because people had questions, and I know they do. I just can't answer questions on 15-minute calls. So that way it allowed us to be able to pour out, really give you deep dive into your stuff, review stuff if you want us to. You have an hour of our time. And so that's how we engage. If we cannot staff for your role, we'll see what we can do, right? So some people are like, I need to hire, but they don't have a job description. They don't have a 3698 plan. So for some roles, it's not the best. We're not the most efficient people to recruit for it because it's not our pipeline. What we can do is help you find a firm that can recruit for you. We've negotiated recruiting contracts. So people like, oh, they were going to charge me this percent. We got it down by maybe 5 or 6%. We can make sure that your job description is tight, make sure all that stuff is good. But we won't take your money if we can't service you, right? So that's that. While y'all are coming up with questions, whether y'all have them or not, the leadership piece I do want to touch on for 30 seconds because it's not leadership. I think that people are born with charisma, right? There's some people that are just charismatic. They attract people, they draw people. I don't believe that you're necessarily born with leadership skills in that leadership requires a lot of emotional intelligence. There's like work that goes into leading people because people are going to try you, okay? So you got to know, like, how do I respond? How do I identify? How do I not be triggered, right? How do I identify people, the right people? How do I understand when I'm picking up something about somebody? Is that like my own ish, or is that really my spidey senses going off, or is that my petty senses going off? Like, which one is it, right? We have to also know how to pack up our own stuff, right? How do I navigate the bad day I had in the morning before I logged on so I'm not going off on everybody, right? How do I navigate my own stuff, right? How do I mediate? How do I help employee A that learns this way and employee B that learns that way and employee C that learns totally differently, right? How do I show up for all these people? And I think that's the part of leadership. Like, we're thinking management and delegation and getting stuff off our plate, but really leadership is nurturing people, right? And helping them show up as their best version. So when I decided to manage people, my job then became, I needed to move all the barriers for them. What's prohibiting them from showing up, right? And if it's that the job ain't the right job for them, then I remove that barrier for them and I release them into whatever it is they need to go. If it's they just don't process a certain way, or they are damaged from other employers and they don't have the confidence to really show up, like, you got to assess that. And I will say, for those of us who are also saying we want to hire Black people, I'm very serious about this piece. We cannot be toxic to them. So we cannot be like, I'm committed to hiring Black folks, but I'm also not going to do the work to make sure that I'm going to create an environment that Black folks are not also being abused in. I think that's uber important, right? So for women that are like, I want to hire women, you got to do the self-work. That means if sis come in and her shape is better than yours, you ain't mad at her. Like, that's the self-work that we don't really talk about, but it exists, right? If you're a man hiring men, you got to be confident enough that everything ain't like a pissing contest, right? Like, you have to figure out how to navigate you so that you can really lead people and not compete with them. Because at the end of the day, it's insane for you to be the CEO of your company competing with people that you pay, right? Also, we got to navigate sometimes our value. And I'll say, I think this applies maybe more to women than men. Sometimes our value is what we do. It's being the best at what we do or how we do it. So can you handle bringing in somebody can I handle bringing in an HR person that's better at HR strategy than me? Do I see that person as an asset or competition in my business? That's the leadership stuff that ain't nobody talking about. Like, you can do these little motivational leadership. How do you get people engaged? How do you whatever? How do you not be toxic as hell while you also managing people and tell them to join your organization? How do you show up for them? Right? So I think that's a big piece, that when we're thinking about managing, if you want to be a manager or a people manager, hire people because you just want to be less busy and you just want somebody to dump work on, you're not our ideal client, right? So I don't look to work with people like that. I'm looking to work with people that are saying, I'm at the point where I realize that I need the value of other people's intellect. I need the value of other people's time, their skill set, etc., right? I need their value to help me continue building what I'm building, right? And I know that then I need to do the work, whether it's on my strategy, my leadership style, right? How I'm developing culture. I'm ready to do the work to build that for them, If you look into like paid slaves, that ain't really what we're here to do. And I think that's a major distinction because oftentimes I do see that in organizations where people are just overwhelmed and now you're just looking for people to be work trash cans. That's not what this is, right? And nobody will stay. You won't hold on to them, right? So you got to think about that kind of stuff, like that leadership piece, which is why, I mean, Ryan's like, the biggest thing is hiring. The biggest piece is hiring, yes, because you can't leave without people. Like, if you ain't got no followers, you ain't leaving nobody. But once they get in, a whole nother set of work begins, right? And so to me, that's the biggest stuff. It's like the first date is important, but the fifth and the sixth and the second month and the third, like all that is where the work goes in to maintain what that is. And I think it's the same thing with employment. So people have romanticized hiring and no one's saying, yep, we're going to get you your onboarding. Yep, you can get this little slide deck, all that stuff. And then after you have that person on, after that 30, 60, 90 days, they're yours. And are you ready to deal with them every day? Are you ready for them to come in and tell you about their family issues? Their family members are sick. Somebody passed away. Their kids is getting on their nerves. They stressed out. Are you able to navigate people, right? And so this is really it's people work, right? And I think that a lot of us have not tapped into the level of emotional intelligence that makes us good people leaders. We just trying to delegate work. So I think that's a big piece that that I want to normalize talking about more and holding people accountable for. Because the other part, and I'm gonna wrap here, we're in COVID. COVID is here and it's trying to leave, but it's also trying to stay. But I don't know that the world of work will ever go back to what it was. Right? Statistically, gig economy is back up. There are more people that are saying, hey, I'm not going back to an employer because when COVID happened, employers laid people off, didn't give them much resource, and people had to scramble to figure it out. So a lot of people are saying, I'd rather be self-employed. I'd rather own my own stuff. I'm in Mexico now, and I don't want to go back to the U.S. I'm wherever, right? So people are doing that. And so getting W-2 employees, one, is going to be harder. I'm telling y'all, this is my prediction, so write them down, right? I think that you're going to have to pay more for people to come into the office in the next 3 to 5 years, right? Coming in is going to be more expensive than remote, right? You're going to be able to barter differently to let people work from home and all that other stuff. So work is changing. It's also not an employer market right now. It's an employee market because everybody's scrambling to find team and staff. So if you are working and operating in a way where nobody wants to be at your job and they got all these options and all these companies and they can go on a Upwork or a Fiverr and sell their own time, or they can drive a Lyft or open up an Airbnb in their house, or, you know, they can start an e-commerce store. They can do whatever they want. There's a lot more stuff. And a lot of people, whether they can own an enterprise, most people, if they have some sort of a skill, can at least replace a $50,000 a year job. So if that's all you got, you're not competitive already. If you're not creating an environment that people are jumping up and logging on their computers to work with you, a space, if you're not helping them feel like they're a part of the transformation that you're bringing your clients, if you're not doing that, you're going to be recruiting forever. Damn. You're going to be recruiting constantly.
That's heavy.
Right? So that's the part, like, we're not talking about that yet. Big corporations are talking about that yet. We're not talking about that yet because we just like, if I could just get 25 cents and hire this first person. It's like, build something that people want to work for you. There's literally a construct where people will look for you for work, where you don't have to hunt them down. And it changes when people are saying, who is that person? I want to work for them, versus you trying to post and get people to try to show up, right? You're already ahead of the game. Right? When your team is saying, I want to be here, right? When they're like, we love this. We love our people. We love our engagement. We love our clients. We love the transformation. We feel a part of it. It's hard to steal those people. And people are taking less money. Like there was a data report that went out that people are taking like 25% less. They're giving up health insurance to work remote. People are trading in benefits to like, I just want to be home.
Right.
Right. So you got to think about that. We have to think about like, how are we competitive as Black businesses? I'm going to say this and it's at 9:00 and I know you said an hour. As Black businesses, if we're going to really do it and be serious about it, the idea is how do we do it right and how do we do it in a competitive way? Right. And so ideally our strategies right now should be, how do we elevate ourselves? How do we center ourselves? How do we make ourselves best places to work? How do we get people that really understand our mission and our vision and love our clients? Like how do we attract that? That really is the goal. If you do that right, you'll be able to offload the work because they'll come into work, right? But we cannot treat like this hiring like you going to the supermarket, just give me like, 2 packs of chicken. It's not. Because people have choices where they get to go. And so what you want to start identifying, we didn't talk about it, but we'll do this again. Like, who are the people that want to work for you and why, and drill down. If the types of people that want to work for you are looking for freedom, let them be free and create parameters around it, right? If it's because they really care about your mission, make them a part of it, right? If they want to learn and grow, if they just think you dope, then really just be dope. Some people might want to work for you because they just see you out here and they're like, yo, she dope, he dope, I want to work for them. Don't be a different person inside and then they get inside and like, what the, right? Because a lot of people have lost people just on that alone. Be you. For real, right? So I think all those things, but we owe it to our communities. If we're really serious about this employment thing and hiring folks, then we owe it to create a space where Black talent or non-Black talent, right, can really have a viable work option. And that requires work and strategy and consistency and commitment and sacrifice. Like all those things are included. So hiring is a big part, but it really, to me, is just the beginning of it. There's just so many other pieces to it.
That is great. Can we get a digital round of applause in the chat? Seriously.
Digital round of applause.
Yo, you might need to invoice everybody on here. Seriously, everybody on here, she about to send you a bill in your DM because she just dropped major nuggets on y'all. Seriously, like great information, stuff you would literally have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for just 1 hour that she shared. So please, blow the comments up, please. Let's see the claps coming in.
Thank y'all.
Put the gym down there, please. And we are, like about out of time. So if anybody has any questions after, just drop it down later. We'll come back on the replay or whatever. I'll make sure this post stays up on my Instagram so you can come back and watch it. Or if anybody watches on the replay, type replay, let us know you watched it. Any other additional questions, drop it down or go to hrfortheculture.com.
Is that my mom?
Is it?
I think Rev VRP is my mom. If that's you, Ma, say yeah. I think my mom.
Shout out to Mama in the building. So anything else you need, just go to hrfortheculture.com, hrfortheculture.com. Any last words?
Ryan runs my Facebook ads. So also while you're at hrfortheculture.com, check out his stuff. So all the people that were in the challenge, all the ads that brought y'all to the challenge, all that stuff. It's my mom. Hi, mommy. Yeah, so he ran my ads. So also if you're like, hey, I need to get more traffic so I can pay people, run those ads, get the traffic, pay the people, right? So it is a circular thing. And thank you for having me on this platform. Like people don't always share their platforms to talk about your stuff. So thank you for letting me come on here and talk about HR and not marketing stuff. So we'll do one on my platform about marketing so we can share. But in all honesty, right, support the businesses that you see around you. Like when you see people that's giving out information or giving y'all free information, when you decide to pay folks, pay the people that served you for free, right? Don't take from the free people and then go find other people to pay, right? And then think about, I would even say book calls. Book a call with Adrienne. She does LinkedIn strategy. Book a call with Omega. She does graphic and web design. Just book the call and have the conversation. We don't want to talk to you for an hour and let you just pick our brains for free. But I'm sure everybody on here has a strategy call, a strategy consult. Invest in your business for people that you know have the right information and at least figure out the strategy and start putting it together and figuring out. The biggest thing is we assume we know and then we miss out on opportunities that we could have maximized, right? Ryan was trying to get me to run ads forever. Now I'm like, I got a budget a month, only with this funnel. It took me so long to do it because I was scared of it, right? But I just needed to get it done. So don't be scared of what you're building, right? Like this stuff is scary, but do the stuff that you need to do. Be okay with making mistakes. Every mistake I paid for was just tuition, right? Like you learn, but I learned from it. So just go ahead and do the things. And hi, my mom is here. My mom said hi, Bella. Everybody say hi to my mom. That's it. I ain't got nothing else.
All right. Hey, Mama. Hi, Davon. Thank you so much for being here. So, yeah, we are wrapping up. Thank you so much for all the great information you shared. If anybody needs anything else, go to hrfortheculture.com. That's hrfortheculture.com. You can get a little discovery call. It's not a consultation, but if you want to pick her brain, the consultation link will be there. And once you move beyond that, honestly, I strongly suggest you work with her directly, her and her team. They will, number one, get your strategy in order, go through your entire journey of how, your business should flow, you know, from an HR perspective, and get you the bodies to actually fulfill that. She's helped me tremendously. Like I said, I just hired like 4 people within the last week, like seriously. So yeah, that is it for tonight. Thank you so much, Joy. We really appreciate you coming on. If anybody has anything else, make sure you go to her website, hrfortheculture.com. Y'all have a great evening.
Bye, y'all.